Okay, take 40. I was doing really good in the last take until I called Guam glom. Ruined the whole video. Thank you for this opportunity to continue discussing the Charlottesville event. I got a lot of pushback on my last video, which asserted that the Gribley's Folly principle, when applied to Charlottesville, means that we should all just disengage from the whole damn thing. And a lot of people said that's a really bad idea when you're talking about creeping totalitarianism. Let's just take like 50 of this video because I keep trying to make disclaimers on everything I say because we live in a... I'm just going to have to trust you guys to know that I go through my day genuinely trying not to carry an ounce of hate in my heart. And yeah, I might be privileged, I don't know, whatever. I am a Southern white man. I do have some views on these issues. That's a whole separate video, though. All that background is a separate video, and I'm going to trust you guys to assume that I am arguing in good faith here. What is relevant about my background to this video is that I have spent my life in media and politics, and around those in media and politics, I have worked for politicians, I have worked for media outlets at all levels, and I know I'm not an expert, I'm not an authority, I'm not claiming any kind of status like that, but what I am saying is I have some life experience that is relevant to this issue. Furthermore, what's relevant is that, you guys, I'm sure already know this, I realized last November during the presidential election that my life's efforts in the areas of civics were misplaced. And so I decided to disengage from it all. And so that's where I'm coming from. I experienced a downright, I hate to use the term, downright spiritual realization, and at the very least a philosophical realization. And one aspect of it is this: you cannot solve political problems with politics. I don't want to channel Ronald Reagan here because I'm not saying the same thing that he was, but we think we have political problems. In reality, politics is the problem. Chairman Mao said it best. Not that I'm a fan, but he did sum it up very well when he said that political power grows from the barrel of a gun. Every traffic law, every civil penalty, every line of the tax code exists and is followed by those of us that follow these things, because even if just in the abstract, we know that somewhere past the penalties, somewhere past the court cases, somewhere past all the crap that you can get into when you get into trouble with the government, there's a bunch of guys with badges and guns, and they'll come to your house and kick your ass. Politics, government, is force applied legally. That's all it is. Force applied legally. If a client stiffs me on a check, I can't go to their house and kick their butt. If I don't pay the government, eventually, after jumping through a lot of hoops, the government can come to my house and kick my butt. I know at this point you should be asking, okay, Gribs, thanks for the very cynical, review of Poli-Sci 101, but what does that have to do with Charlottesville? Charlottesville is so egregious that each of us sees it and is very emotionally impacted. We really want to do something. Because we live in a political world, what we want to do is practice politics. That's the exact wrong thing to do. You and I don't have any power. This is a really, really, really uncomfortable realization. We think that we have power. We think that we can write our congressmen and our senators. We think that we could even write a letter to the president. We can go vote. And we'll exercise our political will. I don't know if that was ever true, but it's not true anymore. I am very glad to live in a time and a place where those notions are actually given some validity by our system of government. That, a democratic republic does actually allow the populace as a whole some measure of political power. But the thing about that is, it is the tremendous exception to the rule of history. Governments differ in forms. Governments differ to the degree to which they can exercise their power. But the nature of government is still the nature of government. Yeah, we're no longer under, the pharaohs, but at the same time, there are people in power. They have a monopoly on the use of force, and we can activate and agitate and advocate all we want to. And we like to think of ourselves, we like to wallow in the nobility of speaking truth to power. But power is deaf to truth. You can protest all you want. You will not measurably advance your stated goal. I would love to be proven otherwise on this. Somebody please leave a comment. And I know you're going to say, oh, what about the civil rights movement? That's a court decision. That's a cultural change and a court decision. Yes, the Civil Rights Act was a piece of legislation, and yes, it was passed, after a whole lot of political activism. Exception that proves the rule, maybe, I don't know. I think it's debatable whether it was really at base a political change or a cultural change. Counterpoint: the noble speaking truth to power protest culture of the 1960s. That everybody wanted to protest for peace and stop the war in Vietnam. But the Vietnam War ended in the 70s, so I don't think it really worked. And it didn't end because people on the home front didn't like the war. In fact, they voted for Nixon because he ran on ending the war and then became, of course, a giant escalator of the conflict, and there was sort of a shadow protocol installed in the White House because Nixon was an alcoholic and was going through Watergate. There was a shadow protocol used by McNamara et al. To actually circumvent Nixon from escalating the war. There are ideas on display in our country today that were on display in Charlottesville: National Socialism, white supremacy, that sort of thing, nationalism in the abstract, that I find absolutely deplorable, to use the phrase. They are deplorable. But what am I going to do about it? Would I really advocate for these people to be denied their right of free speech? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, should I go stand with a sign and exercise my free speech just to try to shut up, or to try to offer a counterpoint? I guess I could do that. I guess I could, and in my past I have done that. But here's the thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Name one protest that has advanced its stated goal. People do not protest to advance their stated goals. They protest to get attention. Seriously, those white nationalists know that statue of Robert E. Lee is coming down, whether they wave their signs or not. They're not out there to stop the statue of Lee from coming down. They're out there to get attention. The organizer of their rally, Nathan D'Amigo, was quoted by KQED as saying, the more these people whine and cry and scream, the more publicity we get. Meaning, when you engage with those guys, you're actually giving them exactly what they want. And the more you engage with folks like that, and with folks like Donald Trump, the more you give them what they want. If you're an anti-fascist and you go downtown and start throwing punches, you're playing right into their hands. No reasonable person is going to advocate that we should visit violence upon these horrible people. But plenty of people will advocate that we should write letters and letters to the editor and call our senators and all that. It's all on the same spectrum. It's all on the same spectrum. I won't say that I advocate, but for me personally, my decision is to get off that spectrum. let me pose this question. Have you looked at the pictures of those white nationalists? There's like 100 of them, maybe 200 of them. You know, you read all these articles about, oh, white nationalism is increasing in the era of Donald Trump. Yeah, okay. Even if it increases twofold, these organizations are going from, like, 100 members to 200 members. It's nothing. It's not a problem. And now, obviously, when people drive a car into a mass of people, that's a problem. Yes, that's murder. It was motivated by hate. It's extremism. It's terrorism. Yes, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that in the realm of problems that we deal with on the societal level, white nationalism is not a problem. And neither was Donald Trump until we gave him all of our attention. Donald Trump was not a serious political player until the media, motivated by advertising dollars, basically gave him his entire campaign. So I think I didn't actually pose my question. My question is this. What would happen if a bunch of Aryan Nation, white nationalist, Nazi douche nozzles went downtown, waved their banners, and no one did anything? No one did anything. What would happen if they were just ignored? That's how you marginalize someone's ideas. Not arguing with them, not legitimizing them enough to come out and say, oh, we stand against you. No. You just don't give a shit. There's a great line from The Fountainhead. I know. I'm quoting Rand here. But it's still a great line. The novel's antagonist approaches the novel's protagonist at a social event and says, why don't you just go ahead and tell me what you really think of me? I know you hate me. It's okay. You can just say it. What do you really think of me? And the protagonist says, but I don't think of you. Don't think of it. Don't give it your attention. Don't feed it. It's what they want. It's what they want. Against this argument, Norbo makes a counterpoint, quoting Pastor Martin Niemöller, the guy that wrote the poem about, he was in Germany in the 30s, and he said, at first they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the Jews. Then they came for the trade unions, and I wasn't a Jew or a trade unionist, so blah, 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 blah. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up. And yes, that's very poignant, and it's very sad. But the quoting of that poem assumes that speaking up would have changed anything at all. People did speak up against the Nazis. People in Germany, people outside of Germany, everybody spoke up against the Nazis. The Nazis were deplorable. Everyone said it. Didn't change a damn thing because the Nazis were the government. They had the power. And power is deaf to truth. So when you say we can't allow white supremacy to be normalized in the United States of America in this day and age, y'all, look who our president is. It's too late. Now, I don't actually believe that Donald Trump is a card-carrying white supremacist. I think Donald Trump is a hate-filled person, and he plays to his base really well. So the point is, these people have more influence in society than they have in the last 60 years. And there's nothing we can do about that. That's just going to happen. Live your own life and be a good person. I'm sorry. I don't mean for this to sound combative. Just ignore them. Just ignore them. And yes, things in society are going in terrible ways. That is absolutely true. Yes, nationalism is on the rise. Yes, these terrible ideas are coming back into the public sphere. That's true. What are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. So focus on yourself. Focus on following your path. I don't want to get all like woo-woo imaginary friend in the sky religious here or anything, right? But if you listen to the tenets of most major religions, none of them say, why don't you run for office? Why don't you write letters to the editor? Why don't you... No, they say, maybe try not harboring any hate yourself. So that's the challenge I would give you. If you can remove the beam from your own eye, if you can proclaim yourself to be without hate, and you're so confident of that you're willing to go kick someone's ass over it, go for it. But I bet when you get to that point where you're truly without hate, you don't want to kick anybody's ass anymore. Anything else, anything on that spectrum of political action, it just increases the power of those you're trying to fight. That's what I've got to say. Actually, I have a lot more to say. I might actually make another video with like outtake thoughts on this issue. But I'm out of time. And I don't want to cloud what I'm saying with anything else. So thank you guys so much. If we still disagree, then we still disagree. And I'm glad. I'm glad when people agree, and I'm glad when they disagree, because that's the nature of it, right? Thank you for watching. Harbor no hate. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.